I'm Julia from Julia Teaching Resources, and tonight we are going to do a little bit of planning. So tonight, as I said, I've had a lot of questions from people, and I actually had a lovely conversation with a lady this afternoon about planning and how I go about these sorts of things. And we were talking about trying to get numbers in music classes up and all those sorts of things. And I'm doing another call tomorrow for with another lady for the same reason, because as music teachers, we're often flying solo in our at our school. We're often usually the only one, maybe with another colleague if we're lucky. There might be two music teachers, and I've been lucky in my career to have mainly two music teachers at the schools I've been at. But it's tough, and we're planning these things and doing our lessons on our own, and we're not really it's hard when we're trying to who do we bounce our ideas from, because we don't necessarily have somebody to bounce ideas from. And music's a very, very different sort of it's just a different game, really. I mean, you can't really compare how we can do things in music with how it's done in, say, I don't know, maths, for example. Okay, it just think the way we do things is very different. We think with a very different sort of brain. I know there's maths in music, but all that sort of stuff. But anyway, as I said, I just thought I'd show you how I go about what I'm doing, and I'll show you a couple of things at the moment. So this is my timetable for this year. Remember, in Australia, we start our school year at the end of January, beginning of February. And at this stage, what usually happens is you get your timetable at the end of the previous year, and you start with that, and things usually change because of student numbers and all those sorts of things. But you can sort of see my timetable there. I've got things highlighted and whatever else, because I was actually just looking at what classes I have when. So, and I was also looking at when things. So where I teach, we have a week. Sorry, I do this week A and a week B. So, for me, my classes, I know for my junior classes for year 7, they have 5 musics over the 2-week cycle. And then my year 9 and 10 classes have 6. We have 6 classes over the cycle. And year 11 and 12 should be 7. Sorry, I always get that wrong, 7. All right, that's my teaching cycle. So that your subjects are different, because we have 1-hour-long lessons, and we only teach music in year 7 in my school, and then they get to choose from years 9, 10, 11 and 12, but they don't do it in year 8. Okay, so they do visual arts in year 8. They get a taste of that, and then again, they can make choices for their subjects for 9, 10 and beyond. There's compulsory subjects, but music, like art and dance and drama and some other subjects, they're the ones I worry about, and photography, they're elective subjects. So we have to make sure that what we do in year 7 especially is we give them a really good taste of what you can do in music, and make sure that it's something that they really enjoy, so that they do choose it as an elective. Because as I said, our numbers are not are purely, our teaching classes are based on how many kids choose our subject. And if we don't have many kids choosing the subject, then, we might be teaching something other than music. And I've been at schools where that's happened, especially when I was the second music teacher, and I didn't have a full music load at first. And I was teaching music, I was teaching maths, I was teaching, I think one year I was teaching design and technology, so I was doing cooking and sewing and all those sorts of things. I think one year I even had science, like history, I've taught it. Okay, a few things I haven't taught, and it's probably a good thing for the kids. Okay, but as I said, I'm going to share my screen in a moment and show you sort of how I come to decide what things happen when. But before I do that, I want to show you quickly. So this is roughly, say, my year 12 class. So we didn't get to do exactly everything I wanted last year, thanks to COVID and all those sorts of things. But you can see here, I've literally gone term 1. That's what that means, T2, T3, T4. Like that term 4 is basically non-existent, because that's when their exams are. Okay, their external exams. So we've finished in term 3 by term 3. But you can see I've got, I've spaced out what things I'm thinking of here. And, I need to do these, and this is when we're doing practice exams and all that sort of stuff. And on the previous page, what I actually had chosen to do, and what I do with my senior classes, especially in year 12, is I do as many lessons as I can preparing for their performance exam. Okay. And then the other time is spent doing their oral exam. So for me, because I have 7 classes over the fortnight, we're going to do 4 lessons of practical and 3 lessons of oral, okay, which is the listening skills. And that means that we, it's a nice even breakup. And what happens on my timetable at this point is I have 4 lessons in 1 week and 3 in the other. So I'm going to do 1 week of prac, 1 week of theory. So let's hope the kids all decide to turn up on those other weeks. So again, this is just a really rough guide of what I was thinking for my elective class, year 10. Okay, so do it that way. So you can see here, this is 5Y. What happens for me is we're very lucky because we've been working really hard to build up our music department. We have a year 9 class, a year 10 class, and then we have what's called a 5Y class, because stage 5 is 9 and 10, and it's a class that's actually mixed that. So we have three sorry that I taught music maths at one stage, 3 classes in the stage 5 in the year 9 and 10 area. So what I do is, like my colleague, she taught the 5Y class last year, I'll teach it this year. We just take turns, and I will teach whatever I'm teaching my year 10 class. I'm going to do that with 5Y as well. So, I'm not doubling up and trying to reinvent the wheel and all that sort of stuff. It's just not worth it. But you can see here what I've decided to do again is I've broken it up into term 1, 2, 3. This is our assessments. You can see really briefly assessments. So we've got composition, we've got oral and prac, we've got composition, oral and prac. Okay, and you can see there that I've thought about that. The composition is going to be a small group for this one here. Then the next one, the oral, I'm thinking of doing as a podcast, get them to do something a bit different. And then practical, they still have to do that. And then composition, we'll be using technology because we're going to be using Soundtrap this year. We've got a subscription. And again, our oral and prac, and that last oral will be actually a listening exam, preparing them. And then at the bottom, I've decided, the topics I'm doing: large ensembles, small ensembles, rock styles, and music of a culture, so that we're sort of having it, and again looking at the different concepts. So I've broken it down: 2 concepts, 2 concepts, 2 concepts, and at the end we're doing comparison so that we can actually do that in the exam. Okay, so that's again very roughly how I planned it out. And I did the same for year 7, but year 7's sort of already done, but there was something else I have to add in because that's what we do. All right, so I won't show you the front, but this is my year 7 semester 1 book, and in there you can sort of see how thick it is. Okay, this is my copy, not the kids' copy. They don't all get one. We print them out and share them, and then we've basically got the whole thing planned out. We don't do anything. It's great. You walk in and you teach. You go, okay, we're up to that page. We're doing traditional Aboriginal music. Okay, that's where we start. That's a lesson activity. Sorry. You should be listening. And there's a listening activity, okay? And that's a performance activity as well. So, we've got it all broken down, but you're probably thinking, well, how did you get to that point? So I will show you. Okay, so I will share my screen. I said famous last words. Planning your classes. Here we go. All righty, and I'm just going to go slideshow from beginning. Okay, so we're doing, as I said, I'm talking about planning your classes for the year in music. So the thing is, as I said, I've already decided what I'm doing, and that's half the battle. If I know what I'm doing and when I'm doing it, I can then plan my resources around it. And I also think about when things are going to be assessed and all that sort of stuff, so that we get so you make sure that you can fit it in. Okay, so welcome. What we'll be doing is I'll be talking to you about beginning with the end in mind, or backward mapping for us teachers, assessment overview, what to consider, designing your assessments, planning your lessons to build the skills, and then topics to teach. And that's the order I basically go in when I'm talking about planning and thinking about planning for my own classes. So if you've never read this book or haven't heard of this guy, Stephen Covey, or I think it's actually Dr. Stephen Covey, I think he's a PhD doctor. He's got a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, in that book, if you ever get a chance to read it, please do. It is really, really good. I have it on audio book and I've listened to it a couple of times. And I've actually just finished what's the next book, which is called The 8th Habit, which is sort of an amalgamation of all sorts of things. It's really good too. But the thing he talks about is, and I love this quote, to begin with the end in mind means you start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you're going so that you better understand where you are now and so that the steps you take are always in the right direction. Now, we as teachers know that we have to assess kids at some point. So for me, beginning with the end in mind, that's the end. How am I assessing those kids? And I have to make sure that whatever I'm assessing, I'm teaching them all the way along so that they can do that assessment at the end. And that is the big thing, because I know when I was at uni, I did a DipEd, Diploma of Education. It was like a year. It was a very short year. University years aren't very long. And no one ever said to me, they talked about planning, they talked about all sorts of things and how to, assessing and marking criteria and all that sort of stuff and teaching and all those sorts of things. But no one ever said when you're designing an assessment, make sure you design the lessons that go with it. No one ever said to me, pre-teach the assessment, pre-teach the skills. And I tell you what, once I realized that that's what I needed to do, that was the best thing that has ever happened in my teaching, was pre-teaching those skills and really thinking about, what do I really need to teach? Because often we're all given these syllabus or curriculum or things we have to do. And I had a principal once say to me, well, yes, it's there and it's in there, but it doesn't say how well you have to teach it. And so I look at the things now and go, okay, well, there's the big picture. What do I need to do to make sure my kids are successful? And I'm not actually only just thinking about what they're doing in each year, like in each class. I'm actually thinking about what my kids need to know for the HSC, which is for me, the higher school certificate, which is year 12. So in year 7, I'm already building the skills that they need in grade 12. Okay. And that's with that thing here, begin with the end in mind. How are you going to get those kids from there to there? Okay. Oops, off the screen. There we go. All right, so step 1, the first thing I did, and I learned this the hard way a few times, especially at my current school, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So you need to start with your school calendar and you need to look at it and go, okay, when are things happening? When are things happening? So plug in all those important dates that will affect you in the classroom. So things like your school carnivals, I'm talking about swimming carnivals, athletics carnivals, maybe the cross country. It could be school events like Harmony Day, or for us, we do Pink Day, which is all about raising money for breast cancer. But there would be things and events in your school that are very important to your school and your school culture, and they take up the whole day. So have a think about what's in there, okay? Think about other things like reporting times. One of the things I learned to do very, very early was to actually make sure that I had my assessments done before everybody else, because as a music teacher, I was writing a lot more reports than most other teachers. Us music teachers especially, we tend to see nearly every child. So we have to be able to have everything done beforehand, so to give us enough time to do our reports. And then think about your internal and your external assessment dates. So for me, if I'm thinking about year 7 especially, we have something called NAPLAN in Australia, which is our national assessment. Oh, I should know. Basically, it's your literacy and numeracy. They assess it, and it's a Australia-wide thing, and they get assessed in years 3, 5, 7, and 9. So I know that my kids are going to be pulled out around May, okay, for that NAPLAN. I also know that my year 9s will be pulled out around the same time. So I think of those things, and then I make sure that I'm not doing any assessments around those times. So step 2 is to decide what you are going to assess and when. So again, think about those big school events and keep those in the back of your mind. You need to, as I said, consider report times. How much time will you actually need to complete your reports? So for me last year, I was teaching about 110 kids, which I know is not many compared to what other people teach, especially if you're if you teach a lot more junior students, okay, how long is it going to take you to mark everything and report on it? How long will that take you? If you are quick, well, then you might go, well, actually, I would need to give myself at least 2 weeks before that's due, okay, to have that time to do that. If you need more time, you might need to make sure you've given yourself maybe 3 to 4 weeks, okay? It's up, you know yourself how much time you actually are going to need, okay? Think about the assessments you're going to be doing. When are the kids going to be assessed by other subjects? Now, this is something that I learned at my current school, is that for my year 10 students, okay, so this will affect me this year, and my year 9s, like they do these, it didn't happen the last couple of years, but they do these really big excursions. So in year 9, they go to the Gold Coast, and year 10, they do something else. I can't remember, but they go on these really big excursions. Oh, year 10, they do the Central Australia trip, which is in the middle of the year. So I make sure that I'm not doing any assessments around those times, or for the year 9 trip, because it's at the end of the year, that all my assessment is finished before they go. Because the last thing you want is when kids come back is to try and get them to do something really quickly because your reports are due the next day. Okay, you don't want it to be doing that. So the other thing is, let's face it, I teach it in a 10-week term, generally 10 to 11 weeks. So most people, most teachers and most subjects are assessing weeks 9 and 10. I don't like to assess week 10 ever. And one of the reasons is, and one of the things I never ever do, is have an assessment due on the last day of term, because for a couple of reasons. But the one main reason is if the kid chooses not to actually hand in their assessment, and this is for older students, when you have things like N awards and stuff like that that you have to actually follow up with. But if you have it due on the last day, okay, of term, and they don't hand it in, you're not giving yourself enough time to actually write the letters, okay, and do the follow process and put it all in the system so that letters can be sent out. Because usually on the last day, the office ladies say, okay, no letters will be sent out after 11 a.m. And I don't know about you, but I'm not that quick when it comes to getting those sorts of things out. So never, ever do anything on the last day. And the other thing is, technically, if a student then comes back day 1 of the following term and hands it in, they're actually only 1 day late, but they've had a lot more time to do it. So that's not fair on the other kids who actually chose to do the right thing. Okay, so just a word of warning: don't do it. Don't do it. So what I tend to do is I tend to have assessments due week 7, week 8. Okay. Couple of reasons, not only because it's before the other things, but because it is before other classes and other subjects. It means that my kids aren't stressed about those other subjects they need to do. They've got mine done beforehand. And I usually will go, okay, I'll have a look, especially my older students, what have you got due in? And they'll go, oh, miss, we've got this massive maths assignment or this science, biology thing or whatever it happens to be. And it's due week 10 and it's taking us forever. And I go, that's okay, because when you're in music, we've done our assessment. We'll be just working on prac, so you don't have to think about that. Your brain's in a different place. So again, think about your kids. I know that sounds weird, but think about trying to do things earlier so you can give the kids a break when they come to you. Alrighty, as I said, it has worked for me for years, and there's a method to my madness, and I always try to get things done earlier. People go, oh, you don't have enough time to get things ready and assessed. Well, you do, because you don't have to assess everything you teach. There's a thought. You can teach everything. You don't have to assess everything. Okay, so have a think about it. So for me, this is my stage 4 outcomes. So this is the outcomes that I need to look for years 7 and 8. Okay, if I was teaching in a school where music was taught in year 8, but it's not at my current school, but quite often most schools will teach it in year 7 and 8. Okay, so for me, these are the outcomes I have. So many years ago, again, people don't necessarily have good practice, and we all evolve. I would make sure that I hit nearly every one of those outcomes twice in the year. That was ridiculous. It was silly. No one needs to do that. Okay, so I make sure that I just hit each outcome once. Okay, and people go, oh, but no. But the thing is, again, in music, I'm not teaching to what they call a dot point in other subjects. These are my outcomes. Let's look at 4.5. Notates compositions using traditional and or non-traditional notation. There is so many ways that we can do that. Okay, and I could be doing that in a lesson when we're doing some sort of arranging of a class performance piece. And we're doing something on the board using graphic notation. It's still showing the kids, and we're still doing a lesson on notation. Doesn't mean that I'm assessing them on it right then and there. Okay, so just think about that. And the other thing is too that if I do a composition, I can just about hit every outcome for composition as it is anyway. Don't choose to do so. But that's what we need to think about. So think about what you're going to do when, okay? So here is my actual assessment schedule for this year for year 7. Now, caveat. You can see here, I've got term 1, performance composition, due weeks 8 to 9. Now, in the past, like kids get stressed and they go, but we haven't done the assessment. And I'll go, it's okay. If things have been a bit crazy and we've had so many interruptions to our lessons, I'll go, you know what, guys, we're actually going to do the proper assessment and the finalisation on this assessment beginning of next term. And it's okay. And, you know, I don't generally do that with older classes, but with year 7 and 8, you've got a bit of leeway there. As long as you get the assessment done and you give yourself enough time for getting reports and stuff done, go for it. But you can see though, like a couple of us, I think it's 4.1, I think I've doubled up on, but if you go through 4.1, 4.2, there's 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, 4.9, 4.10, 11, and 12. Basically only doing each one once except for that 4.1. And you can see also what we try and do, especially in music, is that we try and do our performance and composition task at the same time, because we get kids to perform their own composition, okay? And then the last one, now we don't normally do this listening journal, but that's going to be something new for this year. But that listening journal is something that's actually going to be done all the way through the year, and the kids have to add to it. So they're going to find that a little bit interesting. But you can see though, that listening journal, term 4, week 3 and 4, and that's because there's in our school there's assessments, exam times, and exam periods, which are weeks 5, 6, okay, 7, 8. So you know, kids are in and out all the time, so I'd rather just get it over and done with. So again, when they come back to music and we're still having a normal lesson, we get to do a little bit more fun stuff by playing on the instruments, okay? But this is the thing. Now, I have to give actual weighting and things, and you can see there that performance is worth 50%, composing 30, and listening 20. We have a bit of leeway in my state. I could actually have performing as a lot higher. We choose not to because, you know, that's just our choice. But the other thing is we cannot actually have an assessment due worth more than you can't have anything worth 50%. So that's why that is as it is there. So step 3. So I've looked at the calendar, I've looked at the outcomes, I've created my assessment schedule, as you could see there. And as I said, we tend to do the same sorts of things and activities. And for my 9, 10, 11 and 12, a bit different, but 9 and 10, we use the same assessment schedule for year 9, year 10, and the 5Y, the 9 and 10 mixed class. And they do a composition, and then they do a performance and oral task. Composition, performance and oral task, semester 1, semester 2. They're different things, obviously, but that's what they do. So let's have a look here. So for this performance and composition task, this is where I think about, well, what am I doing? So again, beginning with the end in mind, okay? I'm looking, before I've even planned a lesson, I'm looking at what I'm assessing, okay? What skills do my students need to complete this assessment? How will I explicitly teach those skills? How much time will I need to teach those skills? What resources will I need? How can I make all the students find success in the task? What will the end product from the students look like? Do I have examples to show my students? Will I need to create examples for my students? And how will this be done? So many years ago, I was changing an assessment, and it was basically the same sort of thing, but I hadn't done it before at this particular school. And so I explained what I was going to do with my year 12 class, and I actually got them to do a really good example for me and a bad example. And like, they just took one lesson to do it. It didn't take long for them to do it at all, because it was quite a simple activity. But they loved doing it for a start. But I videoed it, and then I used that exemplar with my juniors to say, okay, What's good about this? What's bad about that? And it was a great example. Now I have actual lots of examples for kids to actually look at from previous years, so they can have an idea of what is, you know, a top mark and what isn't. Okay, so you can see here lots and lots of things are going into the consideration of that assessment. So for the performance part alone, what instruments am I using? What skills do the students need to complete the task? Okay, so if I'm using, say, a guitar, well, what am I asking them to compose and perform? Is it going to be 12-bar blues? Is it going to be ice cream chord change? Am I giving them 4 chords and they do whatever they want with it? What am I going to do? Okay, how long will teaching these skills take? Okay, and that will obviously be different with certain classes. I know that. How will I show them what is a great example and a poor example, like I just talked about before? What is my teaching space like? Will it allow for students to do what I want them to do? I have taught, and I was talking about this earlier today, when I first started teaching music, I still can't believe I had to do this. I had to teach music in a maths room, and the only reason I was in there was because it had a piano up the back that was not in tune, and I was teaching recorders to year 8 boys. It didn't go down well. As soon as I could stop doing recorders, I did. Okay, I have nothing against recorders, but year 8 boys certainly didn't want to use them. It was just like, oh, anyway. So again, my teaching space was very limited. So I did very different tasks with my kids back then because I didn't have the instruments or access to things. And if I did want instruments, we had to literally go, okay, guys, we're all going up to the other music room to get the guitars now, and then I'll go back, use them, teach them, and then pack them up and go back to the classroom. Like, that took forever. So think about what resources you need. Composition, same deal. What type of notation will they be using? What instruments will they be using? What skills do the students need to complete the task? If you're doing some sort of like formal type notation, have you taught them what the note values are? Have you taught them where the notes are on the star? Have you done those things? How long will it take to teach those skills? How will I show them a good and a poor example? Do I have the resources I need? What is my teaching space like? Same questions, see? What will it allow my students to do what they need to do? And how much class time will I allow the students to complete the task? Now, generally, with this particular task, we teach the skills, teach the skills, teach the skills, teach the skills, so much so that when we're actually giving them the task and the actual time to do it, we probably get the task done in 2 weeks. And again, that's 5 lessons, okay? Roughly, depending on the class and depending on how many interruptions, okay? Yeah, it just always depends on interruptions. But some classes are going to take longer, okay? Now, some classes, when I'm doing this particular task, will never get to work in a small group because they can't, okay? They struggle in a large group, but we just do it as a class task, okay, as a whole group task. Still in that step 3, how will they be assessed? What is the breakdown of the skills being assessed? What is the breakdown of marks for each skill? Is the marking criteria weighted evenly, or where should it be focused? Okay, how will I present the marking criteria to students? How will I show them what's a good or bad example, and will the students have a chance to mark an example? Now, that's a really good one. If you get the chance, get them to mark one so they get an idea of where they are, and they're usually pretty good. They usually get the grades pretty well on where you would put them as well. They know where it's supposed to be. But the thing is there with that breakdown of marks for each skill. Now, what I do is for each outcome, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. So 4.1 might be, it's performing something or other. So it might be performs in time with other instruments, performs correct timing, performs correct pitch, performs, a confident chord pattern, whatever it happens to be. And I actually will make sure that it's weighted so that other outcomes may not actually be worth as much. All right. It's better that way. So on to step 4. So you looked at your school planning, you've done your assessment schedule, you've looked at the types of assessment you're going to do. Now's when you actually start thinking about what you're actually going to teach, okay? So this is this part actually does take the longest, all righty? So how many lessons are in your term? How many lessons will the students need to complete the assessment? I know I keep saying that. What skills will I be teaching them? What topic will we be studying? What important vocab do we need to explicitly teach? What instruments will you be focusing or using? What composition skills will you be focusing on? What listening skills will be focusing on? Are you using the elements of music or the concepts of music? Okay, so I use the concepts, but I create a lot of things for elements of music. The thing is, when you're breaking it down, you need to go, well, what do they really need? Again, begin with the end in mind. What skills do my kids need to complete that assessment with every bit of information they can possibly have that I can provide them? So again, if they're playing on instruments, have I shown them how to, create a rhythm? Have I shown them how to notate that rhythm? Have I shown them how to create a melodic ostinato? Have I shown them how to notate that melodic ostinato? Have I shown them that, if we're doing a pentatonic scale, basing something on a pentatonic scale, have I told them what a pentatonic scale is? Have I told them that they shouldn't be playing certain notes, and that, they'll find more success if they do X, Y, Z? Okay, those are the sorts of things. What will you be doing? Okay, that is the thing. This is the fun part. This is the lesson planning part. And the thing is, you need to think about what topics you're doing. So not every topic I want to assess with a performance and composition. Okay, because I'm doing that twice in the year. So what topics will I be assessing like that? What topics will I maybe be assessing the listening skills on? Okay, so think about what you're doing. It may not be worth actually doing a performance and composition assessment based on classical music if your kids don't have the skills to actually do something on classical music. They might find more success doing world music where you're using ostinatos, okay, and African music or Chinese music or like the gamelan, the Indonesian gamelan, those sorts of things. What even African music in terms of the rhythms. Okay, what are you actually wanting them to do? What are you studying? When I do, we teach rock music. We're also doing the 12-bar blues and ice cream chord change, and the kids have also done by then ukulele and guitar and a bit of keyboard and a bit of drum kit, so that they can actually start doing their own ensembles as well from there. So once I've actually got the idea of when things are, this is something that you might see. I said this is not my actual one, but just to give you an idea. Alrighty, so this is roughly a plan of what is actually going to happen. So you can see the important dates there. Swimming Carnival, Harmony Day, the assessments due last week of term. Again, I try and avoid having anything due in the last week of term if I can. Then what am I actually doing? Week 1, introduction to the course, get to know your games, it's your rules, all those sorts of things. Week 2, we're looking at important terms, playing on percussion. Week 3, bucket drumming and listening. Okay, week 4, time signatures, more bucket drumming, listening. Week 5, we're going into pitch. So we're going to move on to tune percussion, simple melodies and listening. Week 6, again, pitch, melodic and rhythmic ostinatos, so more on the percussion instruments. Introduce the assessment, even though you're not giving it to them, but you're giving them the idea this is what you're going. And you can see I'm already building the skills, rhythmic skills, pitch skills on the tune percussion, okay, the terminology that they need, okay, note values, time signature, ostinatos, all those sorts of things, those important terms are coming in there. Week 7, working on the assessment all week. Week 8, prepare and present the performances. That always takes much longer than you think. Week 9, finish the performances, complete the written part of the assessment, which is the composition part, which what I normally do is for those particular ones is when the kids are actually presenting their performances, the rest of them are actually doing their writing part. So they're nice and quiet while we're actually recording the other students. And then week 10, we're looking at anything, if I have to complete any sort of leftover assessments, listening thing, maybe some games, you know what you can do with your classes. And then the last thing is to teach it. Step 5, teach it. That's the fun part, okay? To actually teach it and actually do what you want to do, which is teach. And the last thing you should be doing is step 6 is evaluate. What worked, what didn't? Okay, that could be a whole other discussion here, but evaluate what you actually have done. Did it work? Was it successful? Was it unsuccessful? What did the kids like doing? What didn't they like doing? What will you never do again? What will you definitely do again? Those are the sorts of things you need to do when you're evaluating. So just to recap, planning in music is something like this. Step 1, look at your school calendar and put important dates in. Step 2, Decide on what you will assess and create the assessment schedule. Step 3, create the assessments. Okay. Even if it's not done perfectly, just have an idea of what you want the assessments to be. Step 4, plan lessons based around the topic skills to be taught and the assessment dates. Step 5, teach it. Step 6, evaluate it. So don't forget, you can find plenty of resources. So if you've done all that planning, you're going, oh, I still don't know what I'm going to teach. I've got stuff ready for you. So it's all good. I've got plenty of things ready for you over there in my Teachers Pay Teacher store. Use the link in the description below to go and have a look. But there's lots and lots of units. And in fact, I've actually got a couple of bundles, which would be perfect. The Music One bundle is perfect for beginning, like year 7s. And my Music 2 bundle is what I use for year 8s. If you'd like to know more about my Writing About Music course, go and have a look at it on Teachable over there at juliajulia.teachable.com. Or if you'd like a copy of the free Elements of Music map, don't forget to go to juliajulia.com/free mind maps, all smooshed together. If you put some information, you'll get some great stuff for using the Elements of Music mind maps. I love those things. I use them in class all the time. And don't forget, you can also find more information about the Elements of Music on my blog, juliajulia.com. And thank you so much for watching. So